Hey everyone, C-Stan here with the Lord of the Rings The Living Card Game. Today I am doing a quest overview of A Storm on Cobas Haven, which is, well, as of the recording, the newest quest to be released. And so I'm just going to go over a little bit of the story behind the quest and then get into how the mechanics work, why it's different from other quests, and some potential strategies for beating it. So the point we're at in the story is Captain Sahir, who was originally our enemy and briefly turned ally, has betrayed us and is off um, attempting to escape to Umbar. Meanwhile, his fleet of corsairs are attacking Cobas Haven, and we, as the heroes, are joining Prince Imrahil in the defense of Cobas Haven. And so this is essentially a giant fleet combat quest. So it's a sailing quest with a lot of ship enemies, essentially, is what it boils down to. So you get to choose your standard ships. If you're playing solo, you actually get to choose two ships. Otherwise, each player gets to pick one ship. These are the ship objectives from the Grey Havens box, so you don't get any new ones. You just play with the ones you've been used to playing in the other sailing quests. And then we start with some things in the staging area. The main thing is the main enemy in this quest is the Flagship. And this starts in the staging area. No, that's not it. This one. So it's an enemy with 50 threat, and it's got 50 engagement cost. But the difficult thing about this guy is he basically sits in the staging area the whole game with giving 3 threat, and there's really nothing stopping you from engaging him, which is kind of a neat idea, but he is really tough to take out. He's boarding 1, he's immune to player card effects, so you can't do any sort of direct damage on him when he's in the staging area. Only ship objectives can be declared as attackers against the Raider Flagship. So this is the difficult aspect to the quest. So if we're looking at the ship objectives, we've got Dream Chaser, Dawnstar, Narlenya, and Silverwing. You'll see they've got like 4 or 3 attack, and only one of them has ranged. Yeah, the Silverwing. So at best, you're only going to be able to attack the Flagship with two of the ship objectives at a time. If you're in solo, you can of course attack with both your ships. But if you're in multiplayer, you're going to need someone with the ranged ship to attack it. And even then, you're only going to be doing about 4 damage per round, assuming you've combined your 2 ships into attacking this guy. As for defending him, that means you didn't use a ship to defend him and you just took it undefended. So you're basically taking undefended attacks on your ship and then attacking back for 4 damage a round, and that's really tough to sustain. And to make it worse, at the end of the encounter phase, the engaged player reveals the top card of the Corsair deck and engages it. So it essentially keeps doing its boarding 1 every encounter phase, with the first encounter phase being especially bad because it has the actual boarding 1. So yeah, this guy's tough to take on early, even though they let you do that. There is one way that the quest gives you for taking out this guy that helps a little bit, but it's still really tough, and I'll get to that in a minute. The other thing that this quest has unique about it are these objectives. So not those ones. So these objectives here. So when you start the quest, you get to pick one of your choice and put it into the staging area. And they start guarded, but they'll all give you some sort of bonus if you successfully clear the guarding card. So here on Seaward Tower, this is actually my favorite choice for the first objective. If Seaward Tower is free of encounters, add it to the staging area controlled by the players. While the players control Seaward Tower, look at 2 additional cards from the top of the encounter deck during each sailing test. So if you're not familiar with sailing test, you basically have to exhaust your characters before the quest phase, and then reveal that many cards from the top of the encounter deck. And if you don't see any of these symbols here, then you've failed the sailing quest, and you stay off course essentially. If you want to get back on course, for each degree of on course you want to get back, you need to find one of these symbols. So being able to look at 2 additional cards basically is 2 free allies you get committed to the sailing test every round. And since I like to commit in this quest a lot, because these symbols are more rare, this is really helpful. But let's look at the other ones. We've got Tower of the Gull. If Tower of the Gull is free encounters, add it to the staging area, controlled by the players. It gives you a combat action. If the players control Tower of the Gull, exhaust it to deal 2 damage to a non-unique ship enemy. Any player may trigger this action. So this lets you take out ships before they engage you and avoid the boarding keyword, which makes thematic sense given it's some sort of tower that's probably firing from afar on these ships. And this is really useful as well. It might be my second favorite. And unfortunately, it doesn't work on the Raider flagship because it's unique. So you're going to have to, if you want to kill the Raider flagship, you are going to have to engage it. The beacon. If the beacon is free of encounters, you gain control of it. If the players control the beacon, exhaust it and spend 5 resources to take control of 1 set-aside copy of Dol Amroth warship. Any player may trigger this action. So this is the mechanic I was telling you about that makes it easier to take out the flagship. If you use this action, you gain control of this ship, which the stats aren't so great, but if you're on course, the Dol Amroth warship gets +2 of each stat, so that puts you up at 444, and you can be doing a lot more to the flagship with a 3rd ship. And you can potentially even get another Dol Amroth warship. I think there's 2. Yeah, there's 2 that you can control. And then the last objective is Tower of the Heron. If Tower of the Heron is free of encounters, add it to the staging area controlled by the players. While Tower of the Heron is controlled by the players, reduce the archery total by 4. Now, that's pretty good. Although it's not my favorite choice for the beginning objective, because you don't start with archery in the staging area, and so it kind of doesn't do anything at the beginning. But I like to gain control of this later in the quest, because these objectives, if you don't pick them, they get shuffled into the encounter deck and they can show up randomly. So that's the first stage. If you ever do get way off course, then the Raider flagship will get -50 engagement cost and engage you. So you want to avoid ever going to the worst setting. The battle in the once you complete this, all right, you go to stage 2, the battle in the bay, and you have to get more ships and add them into the staging area. And in this one, you're not able to advance until you've gained all. So you can't advance. Well, at least one objective is guarded by an encounter. So you need to be in control of everything. And this can kind of be a little bit swingy depending on how many objectives you actually have turned up. If you've turned up all 4 of them, you have to make sure all 4 are cleared. But if none have showed up since your initial one you started with, this stage can be a lot easier to clear. And then the last stage, the Raider Flagship gets minus 50 engagement cost and everything makes engagement checks. So this guy engages you no matter what on the last stage. So you want to get through it quick. However, the breakthrough the fleet has +5 quest points for each ship and enemy in play. And this is typically, well, in my quests where I don't kill many ships, you can have like 6 or 7 ships in the staging area, and this has a huge amount of progress to complete. So you better pack a lot of questing if you intend to do it that way. But you can also beat the Raider Flagship in order to win. So that's another kind of similar to the quest Flight of the Stormcaller in that it lets you get through, well, actually all the sailing quests we've gotten so far. So voyage across Belagare, there's an option to just out quest the staging area. Same with Flight of the Stormcaller, you can quest through it or actually defeat the Stormcaller. And again, we see that theme come back. You can break through the fleet and quest through it or defeat it. Defeat the Raider Flagship. So let's go over some of the encounter cards that you're going to see in this quest. I already covered the Flagship. We've also got this Skirmisher. It's boarding 1, immune to player card effects again. And after the Skirmisher is destroyed by an enemy, the engaged player may discard allies he controls with a total of at least 3 willpower to take control of the Corsair Skirmisher as a ship objective with willpower equal to its threat. It loses the ship enemy card type and gains the ship objective card type. So you basically commandeer this ship and it becomes yours. And this is another way that you can go about defeating the Flagship, because this would be able to attack it. Okay, only ship objectives can attack. So this thing gains the ship objective card type, so it would be able to attack the Flagship. We got the Siege Ship, Archery 2, cannot have attachments. While it's in the staging area, it gains forced at the beginning of the quest phase. If Siege Ship is not guarding an objective and there is an unguarded objective in the staging area, attach Siege Ship to that objective guarding it. So these are pain, because whenever you clear guarded objectives, these things just latch on. But fortunately, they don't have a boarding keyword. So you just engage these guys, defend them once, and then attack back with your guys and take them out. The Heavy Cruiser, boarding 2, cannot have attachments. When revealed, search the encounter deck and discard a pile for a Dal Amroth objective and add it to the staging area. Then attach Heavy Cruiser to that objective guarding it. Shuffle the encounter deck. So this thing brings out more guarded objectives, which I guess depending on your strategy can be good or bad. Because when he brings out the guarded objective, you aren't going to be able to advance through the quest because of the Battle of the Bay mechanic until you've actually defeated the Heavy Cruiser, which is a tough nut to crack. Okay, we got the Coast of Am Fluss. So some locations here, and I found the locations in this quest to actually be pretty nice. Nothing bad. In fact, some of them are good. So if you're off course, this becomes more threatening, and all you have to do to travel there is exhaust a ship. The Belfast Islet is really nice. So you can't go there if you're off course, but if you're on course, you get response. After you travel to Belfast Islet, choose a ship enemy that is not guarding an objective While Belfast Islet is the active location, the chosen enemy is considered to be out of play. So that can be very good against the siege ship, so that it doesn't latch on to your objective, or, well, actually the timing, this thing triggers at the end of the quest phase, whereas the islet triggers after you travel there. So you can't do that, but you can block the the other ships, and there are actually a bunch of ships that come in with the Grey Havens encounter set. One of them has archery 4, I believe, when it's in the staging area, so that's one you would definitely want to target with Belfast Islet. Cobas Haven, well, it's the active location. Reduce the boarding X value on each ship enemy by 1, which is awesome. So a lot of the ship enemies only have 1 boarding keyword, so you get to avoid that. Okay, now we get into the treacheries here. If you're off course, the engaged ship enemy with the highest attack makes an immediate attack. So if you don't have ships engaged with you, it's going to do something else, presumably. Until the end of the phase, add 1 to the total threat in the staging area for each damage dealt by this attack. If no attack was made as a result of this effect, ramming speed gains Doom 2. So you've got to increase your threat by 2 for that. Taking on water, attached to a ship objective, and it's a conditioned attachment with the text, forced after attached objective exhaust, deal 2 damage to it. Okay, so to use your ships, they're going to take damage, but you get this action, which is really nice. I like this idea of having this on the card. Exhaust 3 characters you control to discard taking on water. So I really love that they gave us this condition attachment in this quest with a built-in ability to remove it by paying some cost. So this way you don't have to like throw in a bunch of sideboard cards that are directed towards condition attachments. You have another way of dealing with them. And then the Raider's Assault, choose a ship enemy that is not currently guarding objective, attach that enemy to an unguarded objective in the staging area, guarding it. Return that enemy to the staging area if it is engaged. If no ship enemy is returned to the staging area by this effect, the Raider's Assault gains Surge. So that's a pretty unfortunate treachery, but not going to be a game ender. And that's it. That covers the whole quest. My recommendation for beating this quest is to bring a deck with like a lot of allies. Allies are great at sailing quests because, sailing tests, because the actual amount of willpower they have or their stats, it doesn't matter for a sailing test. It's just as many characters as you exhaust, you get to see that many cards. So it really helps just to have a very swarmy deck that can just pump out allies. I also recommend having a lot of willpower. I think this quest is most easily beaten, I would say, through the questing route rather than destroying the flagship. So if you can actually keep your threat low, and I believe the magic number is around 28, then no ships will engage you. And you can build up your swarm of allies. You could probably get Ally Faramir out to boost up your willpower by a lot. It makes the quest actually pretty easy, relatively speaking. It can be done with definitely a non-power deck. So while I would say the quest is difficult, it's kind of difficult in the same way as some other quests where generally if you just bring a general deck against it, it's really tough. But if you build specifically for it, it becomes really, really simple. And you can avoid a lot of the tricks that the deck tries to throw at you. So I plan to actually do a playthrough of this quest with a Hobbit deck, which is which is going to feature actually some very underplayed hobbits. And so look forward to seeing that soon. And in the meantime, thanks for watching this quest overview, and happy questing.